In fact, that's what I thought I was going to do. But, you know, there's always an exception to the rule, and I've had quite a few offers and even getting involved in the World Cup. But I just felt, really, that this was very tempting, too good to resist.
Terry Venables was a legend. Everyone loved El Tel. He had charm and tactical genius, but behind the smile was ruthlessness. These 6 people made Venables show his worst side. He can't play for shit, he'd say about those who didn't fit his vision. Once out of bounds with Venables, there was no coming back. Let's talk about the men he crushed and why crossing him meant career disaster. If you're enjoying this, hit the hype button. When Venables died in 2023, people asked harder questions. Did genius always come with this human cost? This story starts with number 6. Number 6 is Neil Ruddock, and Venables treated him like a problem. Ruddock played for Venables at Tottenham during the Dream Team era. He was talented, a defender who could stop anyone. The problem was off the pitch. Ruddock loved nightlife and drinking. Venables had zero patience for this. In 1993, Ruddock was desperate to leave for Liverpool. The transfer became a money war. Lawyers got involved. Years later, Venables inserted weight clauses into contracts. Ruddock would take diuretic pills before weigh-ins to trick staff. That's what their relationship became. A manager who couldn't trust his player. A player who couldn't trust his manager. Their story ended with fines and legal bills. Number 5 is Carlton Palmer. Palmer was a Leeds midfielder who embodied Graham Taylor's failed England team. Taylor wanted direct football and physicality. Palmer was the perfect engine room player. Tall, gangly, tireless. He was the face of the turnip era. Under Taylor, essential. Under Venables, obsolete. Venables wanted something different. He wanted midfielders who could receive the ball and turn and pass. He wanted Gascoigne, Redknapp, and Ince. He wanted Dutch football. Palmer didn't fit that picture, so Venables quietly removed him. Palmer said he was a square peg in a round hole. Venables wasn't rejecting his tactics. He was rejecting what Palmer represented. The old era had to be erased. What made this cruel was that Venables never seemed cruel. Palmer just never played again. His international career ended because Venables didn't like his style. England midfield that beat the Netherlands in 1996 was built on technical skill. By discarding Palmer, Venables was firing an entire philosophy. Number 4 is Steve Bruce. His story is about erasure so complete it became legendary. Bruce was Manchester United captain during their dominance. He was a colossus. Alongside Pallister, he formed the bedrock of defences that won consecutive Premier League titles and the double. He was brave. He was a leader. Scored goals from set pieces. One of England's best players. Yet Venables treated him like he didn't exist. When Venables took the England job in 1994, people assumed Bruce would finally get caps he deserved. Graham Taylor had ignored him completely. But Venables was supposed to be a meritocrat. Squad after squad came out, and Bruce's name was nowhere to be found. Media started asking questions. How could the captain of the champions have 0 international caps? It became embarrassing. But Venables simply didn't budge no matter the pressure. His objection was purely stylistic in nature. Venables was obsessed with playing out from the back. He wanted defenders comfortable on the ball. He wanted them stepping into midfield, initiating attacks from deep. He looked at Tony Adams and saw real potential. He looked at Gareth Southgate and saw a natural ball player. He looked at Steve Bruce and saw an old-school stopper, a man who headed it and kicked it long. Despite Bruce's incredible club success, Venables viewed him as an artefact. The defining moment came in November 1994. England played Nigeria at Wembley. The clamour for Bruce had reached fever pitch. Venables called Bruce and offered a squad place. But how he did it mattered deeply. It wasn't saying, "I need you." It was a token gesture, a sympathy cap to silence press. Bruce rejected it firmly. He told Venables that as a sympathy vote, he'd rather not play. He preferred to stay uncapped than accept a pity cap. It was dignity and defiance. So Bruce stayed at 0 international caps, a player with 3 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups, and 0 caps. One of football's great anomalies. Venables placed faith in younger defenders like Sol Campbell and Southgate, and it paid off at Euro 96. Defence was excellent. Tactical gamble worked, but the human cost was alienation of one of the country's most respected professionals. It was hate manifested as silence. Number 3 is Diego Maradona. This story is different. Not rivalry or disputes. This is cold, calculated sacrifice. Venables proving no genius was bigger than his system. Not even the greatest player ever. When Venables arrived at Barcelona in 1984, he walked into chaos. Despite having Maradona, Barcelona hadn't won La Liga in 11 years. The club was fractured by politics. Maradona was at war with the president. His lifestyle was chaotic. His entourage was huge. He'd been in a violent brawl at Copa del Rey final. He'd suffered hepatitis and ankle injuries. Barcelona was drowning in dysfunction. Venables analysed the squad and made a decision shocking football. He didn't want Maradona, not because he wasn't brilliant. Maradona was genius, but Maradona was an individualist demanding the team orbit him. Venables wanted a cohesive unit pressing high. He wanted a system working, not built around one star. Venables called it irreparable, so Venables sold him to Napoli. He sold the greatest player alive because the system needed something else. To replace him, Venables signed Steve Archibald, Scottish striker from Tottenham. The press thought him insane, but Venables was right. Freed from indulging a superstar, Barcelona pressed and passed as a unit. In his first season, Venables won La Liga. System was superior to saviour. Unlike other feuds, this one softened over time. They developed mutual respect, but rejecting genius itself remains the boldest decision Venables made. Number 2 is Alan Mullery. This story created an entire football rivalry from pure hatred between two men. Mullery and Venables were both Tottenham midfielders in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Mullery was the enforcer, captain, the manager's favourite. Venables was the technician, schemer, vice-captain. Venables thought himself smarter. Mullery had the armband. Jealousy simmered for years, waiting to explode. It exploded in 1976. Venables managed Crystal Palace. Mullery managed Brighton. Played 5 times that season, twice in the league, then 3 times in the FA Cup with replays. The Stamford Bridge replay is where it boiled over. Palace won 1-0 after a controversial penalty going Palace's way. Brighton fans were furious. When the final whistle sounded, Mullery was soaked in rage and frustration. A Palace fan threw boiling coffee over him. Mullery was scolded and blinded by fury. He reached into his pocket and pulled out cash, either a £5 note or loose change. The meaning was identical. He threw money on the floor, saying, "Your team's not worth that," the ultimate professional insult. In football, telling a rival manager his team is worthless is unforgivable. Venables, basking in victory, gave a cold reply. "So what? We won. Unlucky. Cold. Icy." That coldness infuriated Mullery. He stormed into the Palace dressing room, continuing confrontation. The FA fined him. The damage was done. This incident created something bizarre. Crystal Palace and Brighton are 50 miles apart. No logical geographical reason they should be rivals. But because Venables hated Mullery and Mullery hated Venables, fans started hating each other. The A23 derby was born entirely from one man's contempt for another. Years later, Mullery became Palace manager, the very club he'd insulted. Venables' shadow loomed huge. Palace fans revolted. They remembered the £5 note. They remembered the insults. Mullery's tenure was a disaster with boycotts and falling attendance. Fans refused accepting the man who'd been their idol's nemesis. Mullery's failure was Venables' final victory in the legacy itself. Number 1 is Alan Sugar. This is the war defining absolutely everything. If you want understanding how far Venables would go protecting his power, look at the battle with Alan Sugar. This wasn't fought on training grounds. It was fought in wood-panelled High Court chambers, the most destructive, public, legendary battle in British football administration. A civil war tearing Tottenham apart in the early 1990s, symbolising violent collision between the old football man and the new business tycoon. In 1991, Tottenham was dying, drowning in debt from Irving Scholar era and Robert Maxwell's empire. Bankruptcy was real and terrifying for everyone. Venables was manager, and he found a saviour. He turned to Alan Sugar, a self-made multimillionaire who founded Amstrad. On paper, perfect. Sugar brought money. Venables brought footballing credibility. The press called them the dream team, but the structure was explosive from the start. Venables wasn't just manager, he was also chief executive. Unprecedented power, theoretically aligning the club's commercial strategy with sporting needs. Sugar became chairman, holding shares, but supposedly deferring to Venables on football. For a brief moment it worked. Club stabilised. Team stayed competitive. Then everything fell apart. Sugar was a micromanager obsessed with control. Venables operated in grey areas of football business, a world of cash and handshakes and favours. Sugar demanded transparency and receipts and corporate structure. Venables thought football couldn't be run like a spreadsheet. Sugar grew suspicious of Venables' transfer dealings and outside business interests, specifically Eden Note. Tension built through 1992 to 93 like a pressure cooker. In May 1993, it exploded. Sugar moved to sack Venables for alleged mismanagement. Firing a manager is normal. Firing a chief executive, who is also a club icon, is war declaration. Venables refused accepting it. He mobilised the fan base, and they sided completely. To supporters, Venables was the man who'd won the cup and saved the club. Sugar was just an accountant. Protests erupted outside White Hart Lane. Fans burned Sugar effigies and demanded his removal. It was tribal and ugly. Real damage came in June 1993 at the Old Bailey. During court testimony, Sugar made an allegation changing English football forever. Ed Venables told him that Teddy Sheringham's transfer from Nottingham Forest would proceed more smoothly if a bung, an illicit cash payment, was paid to Nottingham Forest manager Brian Clough. Sugar testified, "He told me that Mr. Clough likes a bung." The allegation was explosive, just financial impropriety, an accusation of systemic corruption involving one of the greatest managers ever and the future England coach. The word bung entered national vocabulary overnight. Venables denied it viciously, claiming Sugar invented the story to justify sacking him and destroy his reputation. The damage was irreparable. What followed was multi-year legal war consuming both men. Venables sued for wrongful dismissal. Sugar and the club countersued over Venables' conduct and his Eden Note company. Venables sued the BBC's Panorama programme for investigating his business dealings. He issued libel writs against newspapers. He sued his own solicitor for negligence. Sugar petitioned winding up Eden Note, forcing Venables to pay legal bills. It was relentless and vicious and expensive. Litigation hung over Venables like a sword of Damocles. When Venables was appointed England manager in January 1994, the FA navigated his legal minefield. They gave him the title coach rather than manager, a semantic trick distancing the FA from allegations. It was humiliating. When Venables revitalised England with tactical brilliance, introducing the Christmas tree formation and building creative atmosphere, Sugar's shadow remained. In January 1996, 5 months before the European Championship, Venables announced resignation effective after the tournament. He cited impossibility continuing while fighting court cases scheduled for later that year. Media scrutiny and high court trials would make the job untenable. He sacrificed the chance leading England to 1998 World Cup because his war with Sugar demanded full attention. The animosity between them never died. For decades, they traded barbs in autobiographies and interviews. For Venables, Sugar was the thief who stole his club and truncated his England career. To Sugar, Venables was a charlatan who duped him. Feud became football hatred's gold standard, a war where personal, professional, and financial interests were inextricably and destructively linked. So here's what all 6 stories tell you about Terry Venables and how he truly operated as a manager. He demanded total control in everything he did. He demanded tactical modernisation at every club. He demanded absolute loyalty from everyone around him. When people or players or business partners stood in his way, he went to war. He fought Sugar for power and control. He fought Mullery for ego, sacrificed Maradona to build his system. He ignored Bruce for matters of style. He purged Palmer to bury the past. He battled Ruddock for discipline. His hate was never petty. It was purposeful and calculated. Cold steel behind Eltel's cheeky smile. Despite all this, despite the ruins of relationships and the careers damaged in the process, Venables actually changed English football fundamentally. He dragged it from dark ages into light. He introduced tactical sophistication nobody had ever seen. He created systems that worked brilliantly. He won at Barcelona. He nearly won the European Championship. His innovation mattered. His legacy mattered. He's still remembered as genius, and that's fair. What's also fair is remembering that genius came with heavy human cost. These 6 men weren't just casualties of his ambition. They were the proof that vision and cruelty are sometimes 2 sides of the same coin. Venables was immensely charming and talented, but also willing to cross every line to get what he wanted. Nobody standing in the way of people like that comes out unscathed. That's the real story of El Tel.